Before we were using Mondaycom, our team was drowning in work. Our days used to split between work.
Hello Ateneans! To ensure a smooth running webinar for both the speaker and the audience, please be reminded of these following house rules. Number 1. For the entire duration of the webinar, kindly turn off or mute your microphones to avoid interrupting the presenter. Number 2. Be on time. Once you have joined the Zoom session, please refrain from leaving and attend the entire duration of the webinar. Number 3. To raise your queries, you may type them in the chat box of the platform you are using. Kindly refrain from posting comments unrelated to the topic. Number 4. The moderator will be acknowledging your questions and directing them to our speakers during the open forum. Number 5. When participating in the open forum, be mindful of your background and your background noise. Number 6. We will be releasing the link of the evaluation form at the end of the webinar. Number 7. Please note that we will only be issuing e-certificates to those who have registered, confirmed attendance, and completely filled out the evaluation form. Number 8. Use your real name and follow the prescribed format for proper documentation, if any. Number 9. Unless you are permitted by the organizer, please do not record any part of the webinar. And number 10, please give us a week to prepare your e-certificate to be sent via email. Thank you and enjoy the webinar.
Hello there, Athenians! Welcome to the new season of the Alternative Class Program.
That's right, the ACP is back and it comes with something more.
Indeed, the ACP is one of the biggest and most anticipated formation programs in the Ateneo, with more than 80% of the college population participating in the program's semestral offering.
And the ACP is made possible through the collaboration of the Office of Student Affairs and its partners, like academic departments and formation offices, the Supreme Student Government, and student volunteers like us. Why don't we refresh our students' memories on what the ACP is all about, Seth?
Sure, Alyssa, that would be helpful, especially for those who are attending the ACP for the first time. The ACP is conducted every semester to provide the college students with formative opportunities outside their regular classroom routine and daily schedule in support of the university's uniquely Jesuit educational goals. Instead of attending their classes for a particular period, students choose one ACP topic from among the offered webinars and e-workshops.
That's right, Seth. Carefully selected resource speakers from different fields of specialization are invited to showcase their knowledge, skills, and inspire students to nurture their personal development and partake in social advocacies or causes.
Did you know that there are almost 30 ACP topics in store for all students this sem? And each student could take part in up to 4 webinars and workshops?
Wow, that's amazing, Seth. And what's even more amazing about the ACP is that our topics are varied enough to cater to the different interests of our students. We have politics, environment, arts and crafts, and health.
Foreign languages, financial literacy, performing arts. Name it and you have it in ACP.
But wait, there's more about the ACP this semester. Because of the improvement in our pandemic situation, we are now bringing back some face-to-face ACP events, especially the workshops.
That's indeed a good news for everyone, Alyssa. And I'm sure the students, like us, are excited to learn new things in the company of our fellow students. Speaking of more, what is really the meaning of the more? What is Magis?
That's a good question, Seth. Students have a lot of misconceptions about Magis, so this is an opportunity to clarify what Magis really means. The Ignatian Magis is choosing the most loving option in our actions and decisions out of our love for God. Without this love for God and love of God, the more is not Magis.
Meaning, the more is not about having more or doing more until you get exhausted. It is about quantity or excellence. Contrary to what people understand about Magis, neither is it about settling for the minimum and being complacent after having achieved so.
Magis is love of God and for God. And what better way to do Magis than by serving God's people, especially the poor and marginalized, as a way to love and glorify God. That's Magis, and we, Athenians, are called to discover and live out the more loving option in our everyday lives.
Given this theme, the ACP topics are carefully chosen to be relevant to the current times, formative, and mission-driven. And at the end of the webinars and e-workshops, the ACP hopes for the following objectives. First, acquire knowledge and/or skills that are relevant to one's interest, talent, skill, passion, or advocacy. Second, relate or share the learning and insight gained from the topic or activity in conversation or dialogue and personal reflection.
Third, examine the importance of one's interest, talent, skill, passion, or advocacy to the development of the society. And fourth,
Seek ways or opportunities by which the gained knowledge and skills can be further advanced and used for the benefit of the immediate organization, community, or larger society.
For now, we would like you to listen to the speakers sharing.
And please take part in the conversation during and even after the event.
Strive for more. Be persons of Magis and service. And don't forget to learn and have fun while we experience ACP Ateneans.
History serves as the backbone of every nation's sense of identity. In the same breath, we can only build knowledge and patriotism among our people by learning from the real events of the past. However, a growing problem within our present society lies in the propagation of false narratives and subversion of historical truth. Publications to combat all attempts that distort the truth and reinforce historical revisionism, especially those that feed the dynastic interests of certain political families in the Philippines. It is important to note that blatant lies about our nation's history will skew our understanding and will undermine the educational enterprise that is needed in order to develop a society of critical thinkers. In protecting historical truths, there needs to be a distinction between facts and falsehoods, which can only be determined through the support of verified proofs and testimonies. In response to Ella Cruz's remark that history is like chismes, this eye-opening webinar discusses the anatomy of historical research articles, the important credible evidence, and the editorial processes before the dissemination of information happens from academic publications. In doing so, our invited speaker will draw from his first-hand experience the realities of editing and publishing, which he gathered from writing for Sisai Bicol's annual journal, Saysay, the Journal of Bikol History. Isang makabuluhan na hapon sa ating lahat. I am Elisa Frances Salvino, a fourth-year legal management student, and I am honored to welcome you all to one of the most significant and most proactive events in this semester's alternative class program. I welcome you all to this afternoon's webinar entitled Historical Knowledge Production and Academic Publication. Through this event, we hope that our participants will be empowered in opening their eyes to the important dynamics of producing and publishing information as agents of truth. But before we proceed, I would like to give some key reminders for everyone before we start. First, please mute your microphones to prevent distracting the speaker and your fellow participants. Second, we highly encourage you to open your cameras if your internet connection permits you to do so. And lastly, if you have any questions or insights, feel free to send them through the Google Form link, which will be provided by our staff through the Zoom chat box. Kindly refrain from indicating comments that are not related to the topic. Rest assured that we will be acknowledging your questions and directing them to our speaker in our open forum. We are also live on the AdNu Osis YouTube channel. So let's greet our YouTube streamers with a pleasant afternoon as well. Please do not hesitate to send your messages or questions so we could entertain them later in the open forum. Please take note as well that e-certificates will only be awarded to registered participants who will accomplish the evaluation form. Please do stay until the end of the webinar because we will be providing the link for the evaluation form by then. We hope that you will gain new and useful learning from this event. With all of that said, let us first have a quick kumustahan session with a twist. Syempre, kailangan may kumustahan muna before we proceed with the serious talk. So for my first question, I would like to confirm if it's true that our dear Athenians have the habit of fact-checking before they believe something that they see in the internet. So message nga kayo ng yes sa Zoom chat box if totoo na nagfa-fact check muna tayo before we believe something in the internet. So I will wait. Yan. Yes, yan. Yan ang Athenian. Nagpa-fact check tayo before tayo maniwala sa mga nakikita natin sa internet. So mukhang marami ang nagsasabing yes, and that's very important. That makes me happy. I think happy din si Sir Sonny to know na maraming nagpa-fact check. So for the main question, what are the usual resources that you use in order to fact check what you read or see online? So to answer the question, you may go to the Mentimeter that is flashed on the screen, or you may click the link that is shared in the chat box. Again, what are the usual resources that you use in order to fact check what you see online? So share naman natin kung ano yung mga ginagamit para mag-fact check. What do you use? Do you use books, mga researches? Anong ginagamit nyo? Share nyo yung mga sites or share nyo yung mga materials on how you fact check. So please don't worry because your answers will remain anonymous. Ayan. So siguro we're already receiving answers. Ayan, I'm seeing books. Marami ang nagsasabing books. Keep your answers coming. Google. Yan, Google is the base. News publishing platforms and online newspapers. Sige, keep your answers coming. I want to know what you use kapag nagpa-fact check. So, ayan. So, karamihan nagsasabing Google. Ayun, nag-refresh tayo. Google, ayan, marami talagang Google, publications, articles, research papers. Meron din YouTube. Legitimate, yan. Very important word, legitimate news website. So I'm very excited to see na may iba-iba tayong sources na ginagamit in order to know if totoo nga ba, if authentic yung information na nakikita natin online. And with your active participation in our mini kumustahan session, I think we are now ready to proceed to the main part of the program. So to formally begin this event, may I invite all of you to settle down and put ourselves in presence of the Lord as we begin with the opening prayer. Let us bow our heads and immerse ourselves in His presence.
In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Dear God, we thank you for today and the fresh chance to know, love, and serve you and your people. We thank you for the gifts of life, talents, and persons that you have divinely placed in our lives. We thank you for Ignatian spirituality and the missions of the Society of Jesus and the Ateneo de Naga University. We thank you for our being Athenians and the unique education and formation and purpose that comes with our identity and values. We thank you for the generosity of your people, especially our speakers, and the people who worked hard to make the alternative class program possible. We thank you for our fellow learners and friends who shall take part in enriching conversations and inspiring actions after the event. As we all journey together in new beginnings, continuations, and transitions, may we draw inspiration from the learning we shall gain from ACP and other formation programs. Open our hearts and minds and refresh our memories so that we may discover what you are calling us to do. In the innumerable details, concerns, and hopes that we have today, with courage and joy, may we strive for the more, the Magus. That is to strive to know you more intimately, that I may know you more dearly and follow him more closely. May the many crises in our midst not paralyze us. Instead, may it embolden us. May we truly find you in all things, including our own struggles and afflictions, and may we graciously and humbly receive your merciful and reassuring love. We pray for all these in the name of Jesus Christ, with the intercession of Our Lady of Peña Francia and Saint Ignatius of Loyola. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thank you for the afternoon to our dear Athenians. We hope that you are all ready to listen to our thought-provoking webinar. I am given the honor to introduce to you our esteemed speaker for this event. Our resource speaker is an assistant professor at the Department of History, University of the Philippines, Diliman. He obtained his master's degree in history at the Ateneo de Manila University in 2020 and is currently doing his doctorate studies also in history at UP Diliman. In 2021, he convened Sisai Bicol, a civic organization of historians, educators, and heritage advocates, of which he serves as the research director and chief editor of its annual journal, Saysay, the Journal of Bikol History. His most recent publications include 2 journal articles entitled Jose Maria Panganiban's La Universidad de Manila and the Liberal Campaign for Reforms in Philippine Higher Education, published in Philippine Studies, Historical and Ethnographic Viewpoints in June 2021, and another publication entitled Francisco Gainza and the Establishment of the Escuela Colegio de Santa Isabel, The Pursuit of Hispanization in the Diocese of Cáceres, 1863 to 1877, published in Saysay, the Journal of Bicol History, in the same year. Ladies and gentlemen and everyone in between, I am pleased to introduce Mr. Javier Leonardo Vito Rugeria. Let us give him a virtual round of applause by sending the clapping emoji in the chat box. Good afternoon, sir.
Hello, Eliza. Good afternoon. Before I begin, I'd like to show everyone a video first because I'd like to premise my discussion for today with this Ella Cruz's statement na history is like chismis. So let's all watch this.
Ay, sorry. Ngayon ko na nabasa yung chat mo. Tapos na shooting nyo?
Break time lang, Sen.
O bakit? Tremending ka, ha?
Sen, mali po ba yung sinabi ko na history is like chismis? Hindi ko naman sinabi na history is chismis. Tapos, diyan na lang sila nag-focus, hindi na sa paliwanag.
Okay, wait. Ganito kasi yan. Napanood ko yung interview mo eh. Tinanong ka bilang estudyante. Tapos, tinanong ka bilang artista. Di ka naman sumagot bilang historian.
Exactly, Sen. Isa pa, hindi ko naman sinabi na matalino ako. Di rin naman ako nagmamagaling. Pero, Sen, nagbabasa naman ako, no? Nag-aaral naman ako. At totoo naman na ang kasaysayan ay chismis na napatunayan dahil sa ebidensya at sa research.
I agree. History is chismis with methodology, analysis, and proof.
Isa pa, Sen, history is opinionated. Hindi ka naman po pwede maging historian kung hindi ka marunong mag-interpret.
At ang pag-i-interpret ay personal na pakiwari. History is opinionated because one cannot be a historian without being opinionated. Pag sarili mong interpretation, di may halo ng opinion. Pero dapat based sa pagsasaliksik.
Kung di mapatunayan,
Dapat agresibo rin yung mga historians na magsabi kung kailan opinion lang nila ang pinagsusulat. Opinion at feeling nila na wala namang evidentiary support.
yan ang chismis. Sabi nga ni Oscar Wilde, history is merely gossip.
Sabi rin ni Albert Hubbard, history is gossip well told.
At hindi rin po nagpatalo si Gore Vidal. Sabi niya, history is nothing but gossip about the past, with the hope that it might be true.
Meron pa ngang kamalditahan si George Santayana naman. History is a pack of lies about events that never happened, told by people who weren't there.
Ang taray naman nung kuya mong George.
Correct! Ang daming mga hanash.
Pero wala naman ng babash.
History is like chismis. Mananatiling chismis hanggat hindi napapatunayan.
At huwag maimbierna kung may nais maliwanagan.
Ang sensitive ng mga chismosa sa chismis. Pero eto ang totoong history at hindi chismis. Alam mo ba na ang Presidential Decree number 90 of year 1973 was signed on January 6, 1973, declaring that unlawful rumor mongering and spreading false information is punishable by law.
Hay? Matagal na po palang may batas kontra chismosa.
Dapat meron rin sa mga tira ng tira, wala namang ibubuga. Hoy, anong binabasa mo? Chismis o history?
Ella, artistang naghahanap ng mapapangasawang foreigner para makaahon. Ang ending, siya ang bumuhay sa foreigner.
Gago ka! Hoy! Ayoko!
Gago talaga!
Ayaw!
Sino yan?
Let me just share my screen before I start. Sino sa inyo nakasimangot while watching that video? I was frowning the whole time when I first saw that because it was meant to be a justification to Ella Cruz's remark that history is like chismis, diba? In one interview several months ago, diba, tinanong siya kung ano yung natutunan niya doon sa pag-shoot ng pelikula ni Daryl Yap about the Marcoses, no, the Made in Malacanang. That's the title of the film. And then, of course, one of the insights that Ella Cruz has mentioned is that history is like chismis. And of course, they try to justify that sentiment because Ella Cruz received backlash with her remark on Twitter. Nag-trending pa siya sa Facebook. Ang daming memes na lumabas. At nakita natin kung paano rin siya nabully online because of her statement. At marami ring historians ang nag-appear on live television, nagpapa-interview. I think even Xiao Chua had an interview with Boy Abunda and Rappler, trying to make sense of what Ella Cruz said and how they justified it in that video, of course, directed by Daryl Yap. I don't even think he's a film director to begin with. Anyway, okay, may mga reactions sa ating chat box. Nakaka-high blood daw. GG ako. I feel you. And I think this afternoon, we will try to criticize the oversimplification that Ella Cruz and Amy Marcos tried to do, and their attacks, of course, the concerted attacks that this administration has been doing with the discipline of history. And just a little background, nagtuturo ako ng kasaysayan. I'm on my third year now, teaching history at UP. And I could not have been at a better time at UP because we commemorated the 50th year of martial law, yung elections in 2022. So yung lahat ng ingay about martial law, of course, nandun ako for me to witness and experience that. So this afternoon, I'd like to share with you, how is it in the first place do we produce knowledge in history? Is it really like chismis? Or is there a rigorous process that a certain claim has to undergo before it gets disseminated to the public? Because to start with, I'd like to argue that Ella Cruz's statement is very dangerous. To say that history is like chismis and that history is opinionated, it could mean, or it's tantamount to mean, that history is, practically anyone's claim or opinion. Diba? It is relative, in other words. But it should not be the case, because even if we're no longer, if we're not there to see the event unfolding, we have sources. Diba? And we have to gather these sources in order to construct a more or less reliable and objective narrative. So my task for this afternoon is to show you the anatomy of historical research and how do we do dissemination and publication. Ano yung mga proseso in between na kailangang pagdaanan bago mo ma-disseminate yung isang idea, yung isang claim, isang argument, isang naratibo about a certain past event. Now, of course, I'm coming from the context of the academe, but for this afternoon, I'd like to share with you our experience doing this outside the academe, outside the university. Of course, I come from UP. I graduated from Ateneo de Manila. I finished my bachelor's degree from Ateneo de Naga. AB Philosophy ako, class of 2013. And then, gusto kong ipakita sa inyo yung experience namin in disseminating this to the wider public outside the academe. And I think the challenge is really there. No, it's really outside the university premises, because it's like a bubble. The university, the academia, it's like a bubble where circles would, have the similar opinions, pero ibang-iba yung opinion na nabubuo sa labas nito. So, gusto kong ibahagi sa inyo paano ba kami nagdi-disseminate as an organization ng mga pinuproduce naming historical knowledge, specifically on Bikol. So I'd like to focus on our experience in Sisai Bicol. So again, I'd like to premise our talk for this afternoon with Ella Cruz's statement that history is like chismis. Now, the argument that I have for this afternoon is that it is not. And secondly, it is not opinionated as well, because you will need to back your interpretation, you will need to back your claims with the necessary sources, with the necessary literature. So mamaya, tatalakayin ko yan, iisa-isahin ko. But for context's sake, I'd like to share with you our experience in producing historical knowledge and disseminating it to the wider public and not just in the university setting. Now, in 2021, as mentioned by Eliza earlier, I co-founded Sisai Bicol with Vic Nierva, also an Ateneo de Naga alumnus, and Father Francis Tordilla, rector of the Holy Rosary Minor Seminary. And we were very dissatisfied with the state of Bicol history, with the state of scholarship here in Bicol when it comes to history. And we figured that teachers, even students, don't really know where to go. If they want to learn more about their town, the history of a certain figure, or who's behind the street name. Sino ba yun si Barlin? Sino ba yun si Gainza? Sino ba yun si Panganiban? We don't know where to go. So, yung aming resolution was to form Saysay Bicol. It's the wider project where this journal is a part of. And we wanted to add more nuance and a more rigorous process in producing knowledge about the past, in producing historical knowledge about specifically Bicol. So you can figure that I'm not here to talk about martial law. I'm not here to talk about historical distortion. I'm here to talk about the processes that we need to go through before we can disseminate information. At yun yung pinagkaiba ng chismis sa history. Kasi yung chismis, pwede mo na siyang i-disseminate eh. Kahit unfounded yan, kahit walang ebidensya yan, kahit hindi pa yan napapatunayan, it's already being circulated. Diba? Of course, guilty dyan yung mga celebrity shows, yung mga The Buzz. Di ko alam kung naabutan niyo pa yung The Buzz. But it's so revealing of my age. Pero yan yung mga shows nung Sunday afternoons when I was growing up. I was a high school, college student. Tapos yung mga showbiz chismis, di ba? Doon nila dinidisseminate kahit na nga hindi pa confirmed yan. So, to claim that history is like chismis is an oversimplification. To claim that it is like chismis is a disservice to the discipline of history because there is a rigorous process that should be involved before you can even disseminate your findings, your manuscript, your claims. Hindi pwede. But of course, there is the benefit of Facebook where you can publish, but of course, it does not have the benefit of peer review. Mamaya, ipapaliwanag ko kung ano yung gustong sabihin ng peer review at bakit siya mahalaga sa proseso, no, bago i-disseminate yung historical information. So, nakaisa pa lang kaming issue ng Saysay the Journal Bicol History. Lalabas na yung second issue early 2023. At ito yung binuo kong team, nanggaling kami sa iba't ibang institutional affiliations. One name in that list might be familiar to you. It's Dr. Elsie Albis. Baka naging teacher niyo siya sa Ateneo de Naga. Marami dito, mga kaibigan ko, at actually lahat sila kaibigan ko, baka yung magtampo, no? At we decided to form this team that will comprise the journal because we wanted to publish more quality content when it comes to Bicol history. Para naman hindi lang siya for Bicolanos alone, but also it's something that other people can use if they want to learn more about our region or the history of our region. So the promise of this journal is that it will be refereed by a team of reviewers na nanggaling sa iba't ibang institutional affiliations here in the Philippines and also from universities abroad. I don't have the list here with me. I don't want to bore you with the details of that. But iba-ibang universities sa iba't ibang bahagi ng mundo, yung editorial board at advisory board ng aming journal. So it's part of a wider project, as mentioned earlier in the introduction. It's called Sisai Bicol. And if you're on Facebook or on Twitter, we're right there, Sisai Bicol. Mamaya may QR code ako share sa inyo so that you can follow our page for more content on Bicol history. And I'd like to share from here on the process that is necessary before you can even disseminate your claims or your papers or your insights about a certain historical issue. No, mahaba-haba yung proseso na kailangang pagdaanan bago pa ito ma-disseminate. So, simulan natin sa pag-prepare ng manuscript. Siguro merong mga estudyante dito na nagsusulat na ng undergraduate thesis, mga nagsusulat ng term papers, and I'm not sure with you if this is also your first step. But in the case of history, the very first thing that you do in considering a topic is to look at the primary sources. In the first place, meron ka bang pagbabatayan ng iyong sinusulat? Kasi kung wala, you cannot write about that. When I was teaching senior high school at De La Salle Integrated School, may mga topics akong ni-reject outright. Ang basis ko, there is not enough primary sources to pursue your topic. One thing about history is that it is an evidence-based discipline. And therefore, kung wala kayong ebidensya, wala rin kayong historical knowledge na mapoproduce. Kung wala kayong ebidensya, wala rin kayong argument or claim, sound argument or claim na maifo-formulate out of the topic that you want to work on. So, in the first place, ano ba yung mga tinatawag na primary sources? Malamang tinuro na to sa inyo sa readings in Philippine history, sa Rizal. So, I don't want to bore you with the specific details, but instead, I'd like to show some examples instead. No? So, that's my picture when I was working at the National Archives of the Philippines in 2016. I was very young back then. It was my first time accessing documents like that, Spanish documents at the National Archives of the Philippines. And it was really the start for me, when I started my passion for the discipline, and I never looked back from there. So in the first place, sources are these artifacts that have been left to us by the past. Di ba, halimbawa, pag may ex-boyfriend or ex-girlfriend kayo, no? Yung mga iniiwan nilang sulat, iniwan nilang messages sa cellphone ninyo, o kaya mga comments or pictures ninyo, yan yung mga pwedeng i-consider na primary sources that at some point in time, you happened, no? That relationship took place and happened. So in the same way, in history, yung mga sources na ito, yung mga nagbibigay ng patunay na nangyari nga yung isang past event. All right? These are artifacts that have been left by the past, but at the same time, it is the evidence that could prove that a certain event took place. Now, historians use these sources, whether archival or documentary, to construct meaning. Yung sinasabi kanina ni Amy Marcos na may interpretations then yung history, she was correct in saying that. What was not correct in their claim was that interpretations are also opinionated. They are not. Okay, they're not opinionated because they should be based on the sources that you have. Hindi ka pwede magbigay ng isang interpretasyon na baliktad naman yung pinapakita ng source. It should always be based on your primary source. Now, as I mentioned, it provides evidence. Sources provide evidence on the existence of an event, whereas your interpretation is your argument, no, about a certain past event. It's your argument about a certain past event. Now, later I will show you how do you formulate your argument. Now, before that, there are several kinds of sources with which you can base your paper, no, or your narrative. So, pwedeng magmula ito sa mga travel accounts, mga memoirs, pwedeng newspapers, ito yung mga go-to sources, ano, yung mga dyaryo, record sources, you have the correspondences, yung mga letters, diba? I especially enjoy reading the letters of Rizal to his fellow reformists kasi makikita mo doon yung pagkatao nila. Makikita mo doon yung kahinaan nila, yung complexities nila as human beings and not as national heroes being extolled at the pedestal by the people, diba? So, para sa akin, napakagandang balikan yung mga letters na yun kasi makikita natin doon kung ano ba yung pakiramdam nila, kung ano ba yung naiisip nila, ano yung mga pangarap nila. Parang tayo lang din, di ba? Tayo mga estudyante, meron tayong mga pangarap sa buhay, may pangarap tayo para sa university kung nasaan kayo ngayon, may pangarap kayo para sa bansang ito, even though the situation is bleak, nandun pa rin yung mga pangarap na yun. Makikita nyo yun sa mga correspondences. No? Magandang basahin. I would really suggest if you have the spare time, you access Rizal's letters to his fellow reformists and to Ferdinand Blumentritt. Nandyan din yung historical data papers. May example ako para sa inyo mamaya. Church records, hindi na ito masyadong accessible kasi private archive yan. Ego documents, yung mga diaries. Si Rizal, he wrote a lot of diary entries. Pero darating ang panahon, if not, that time has already arrived, na yung Twitter, yung Facebook, yung social media, ito yung magiging ego documents natin. Hindi ba? Kasi nagpo-post kayo ng status update. Sa Twitter, nagpo-post kayo ng mga ganap sa buhay ninyo. So pwede natin siyang i-consider na ego document. No? So pwede rin pagbatayan yung mga published works like books, pamphlets, dictionaries, etc. Marami pang ibang sources na pwedeng gamitin. Speaking of the historical data papers, ang invitation ko sa inyo is to access this in the internet when you're free and balikan ninyo kung saan nanggaling yung inyong mga families. Dito ko na-discover yung history ng aking family na ang father side ko pala ay nagmula sa Ragay, Camarines Sur. At makikita nyo dyan sa document na naka-flash screen na nandiyan yung apelido ko, no? Rugeria, na isa kami sa mga original family ng Barrio Buenasuerte sa Ragay. So, if you have spare time, no, I'd like you to consult the data papers of the town where your family originated. Just to see if meron ba kayong papel na ginampanan, yung pamilya nyo, sa kasaysayan noong bayan na iyon. So, may mga history ng baryo, history ng bayan, at history ng probinsya. So, napakagandang source din ito ng historical data papers. Ito yung kinumission ni Elpidio Quirino in the 1950s. Ito naman ay nanggaling sa Philippine Veterans Affairs Office at kung interest naman nyo ang yung Japanese occupation of the Philippines at may mga kwento-kwento siguro no sa pamilya na yung lolo nyo ay guerrilla noong panahon, you can actually confirm that using the documents that is available online. Believe it or not, it's already available online. At mga declassified documents na ito na nanggaling pa sa US, I think nasa US pa rin yung physical copies, pero may digital copies na ang Philippine Veterans Affairs Office. So, number 99, Luwalhati ni Casio, is actually my great-grandfather. So, I was able to confirm that he was actually part of the guerrilla movement in Ragay, Camarines Sur. So, very, very interesting, no? That history becomes intimate, history becomes personal to you because these people are your relatives. And when you look at the list, there are even familiar last names that you will see. Yun yung kagandahan, ano, pag inaaral nyo yung kasaysayan muna ng locality ninyo. Kasi pag nagsimula kayo sa national history, national heroes, it feels distant and it doesn't feel personal. It doesn't feel like history is within the vicinity and that you're part of it, no? Kaya yun yung kagandahan kung sisimulan natin bottom up. Bago tayo pumunta sa national, tingnan din muna natin yung local. So yan, no? That's my invitation. I'm not sure if nakilala niyo pa si Father Paco Malyari, but during my time, he taught Philippine history to college students. And we had the benefit, we had the chance to interview him in 2018, if I'm not mistaken, or 2017. And his testimonies during that interview can also be a primary source. It can also be a primary source. If you're wondering, how was Ateneo de Naga in the 1970s? It's best to ask someone who was there to see it. Father Paco Malyari was the director of libraries in the 1970s at the Ateneo de Naga. So maganda yung kwentuhan namin dahil ang dami kong natutunan about the past of, the stories about the past of the university, about his involvement in the discipline of history, among others. Marami pang ibang klase ng oral testimonies and I'm sure may encounter na kayo dyan. So, hindi ko na yan iisa-isahin pa. I think sa Rizal class nyo, sa humanities class nyo, tinalakay nyo na rin yan yung iba't ibang klase ng oral testimonies. Now, pangalawa, ang mahalaga sa pag-aaral ng kasaysayan ay titingnan mo yung secondary literature o yung previous historiography. Again, para sa mga nagtitesis dito, I'm sure na experience nyo na ito. Pero ang kadalasang mali ng mga estudyante sa pagsulat ng review of related literature is this. Many of us, I was equally guilty when I was in college, akala natin ang review of related literature ay listahan lamang ng mga naisulat ng pag-aaral related to your topic. It's not supposed to be that way. No? Kailangan mong pag-usapin. You have to make them converse with each other. Kung ano na ba yung mga argumentong na i-forward nitong mga naisulat na before your own thesis, before your own manuscript or research, ano na ba yung mga naisulat about the topic in the first place? And titingnan nyo kung ano yung research gaps, ano yung kahinaan nitong mga naisulat na ito. Tinatawag na previous historiography sa history. Ano ba yung kahinaan nila? Ano pa yung kulang? Saan ka pa pwedeng pumasok? No? Kaya yung part na significance of the study, take note guys, magagamit nyo ito sa inyong thesis writing. Yung part na significance of the study, hindi talaga siya parang prayers of the faithful. No? Na for the university, ito yung benefit na makukuha. It's significant because for the city, ito yung significance niya. For the country, hindi siya ganun. No? Ang significance of the study ay kung paano papasok yung sarili niyong pag-aaral. Paano papasok yung data na nakuha mo doon sa existing literature, doon sa mga naisulat na about the topic. Kung hindi nyo masagot yon, then hindi nyo masasagot yung tanong na why is your study significant? Gusto sabihin, repetition lang yan ng mga naisulat na. So, ang lakas maka-identity crisis nun, ang lakas maka-existential crisis nun. Kasi if you reach an impasse, a dead end, hindi ka makausad. No? So, the challenge there is for you to find the research gap. And only in that way that you will be able to formulate an argument based on the primary sources and the secondary literature. In other words, when you are making a historical claim, when you are trying to construct a historical narrative, you should be able to not only base it on primary sources, but lodge it against the secondary literature. In other words, bakit importanteng malaman yung kwentong yan? Okay? Ano na ba yung naisulat tungkol dyan sa topic na yan? Bakit kailangan ko yan malaman? Dapat masagot ninyo yon bago kayo makapag-formulate ng argument. Diba? Ano ba yung claim nyo about martial law, for example? Diba? Sinasabi nila na martial law is the golden years. Golden years na ng Pilipinas yun, Philippine economy. But if you have the data and you have your secondary literature, you can easily criticize that argument, hindi ba? So you can formulate your own argument based on that. Pwede nyo i-consider the secondary literature actually yung claim na golden years daw yung Philippine economy nung panahon ni Marcos. That's an example, right? Now, the fourth part of preparing the manuscript is the actual writing, and it's not as easy as it sounds. I wrote my thesis for my MA for 2 years. I was a working student. Nagtuturo ako sa Lasal noon, senior high school. At pabalik-balik ako sa QC, pabalik-balik ako sa Manila. I was assigned in Binyan, Laguna. So hindi siya ganun kadali kasi ang dami-daming pwedeng mangyari in between. Personal, professional, kaya hindi siya kagad maisusulat. No? Maraming tao sa akademya ang nagsasabi na pag nagsusulat ka ng manuscript, parang nagluluwal ng bata. Kasi parang nagluluwal ng ideya. No? Parang nagluluwal ng ambag, ng kontribusyon doon sa body of knowledge na meron na. So it's not as easy as it sounds. There are a lot of considerations. There will be a lot of revisions. Yung mga nagtithesis, you would know that after ng defense. Ang dami pang dadaanan ng manuscript nyo bago yan mapermahan ng chair at ng dean. Okay, so yung writing talaga, you will really have to devote time, sit down, have a table, a conducive workstation, drink some coffee if need be, no? Just to get your mind working. Tapos pag naisulat nyo na yung manuscript nyo, then you are ready to submit it to the journal. Okay? So, we talk about the submission of the manuscript to the journal. Anong mangyayari doon sa sinulat ninyo? Sige, halimbawa, nagsulat kayo ng thesis at sinabihan kayo ng advisor nyo na ipasa nyo kaya yan sa Saysay, the Journal of Bicol History. No? Kaya ipasa nyo kaya yan sa Law Journal ng Ateneo Law School. Ano yung mangyayari pagkatapos nun? Do they immediately publish what you've written? Or marami ka pang dadaanan in between? Now, obviously, the answer to the question is the latter. Marami ka pang dadaanan. The first is what we call the peer review process. Peer review, revisions. Sabi ni Zara, kailangan ng revisions. At yung points for revision ay magmumula doon sa tinatawag na peer review or refereeing process. So ang gagawin ko, ako yung editor. Ako yung editor ng Saysay Journal, di ba? Tatanggapin ko yung manuscript ninyo at ibibigay ko siya sa dalawang anonymous na readers or reviewers na susuriin yung manuscript ninyo, yung merits at yung limits ng manuscript ninyo. Usually, dalawa yan at ang tawag dyan ay double-blind peer review process. Ideally, hindi dapat alam ni author kung sino yung kanyang reviewer. And ideally, hindi rin dapat kilala ng dalawang reviewers kung sino yung author. Kaya nga siya tinawag na blind review process. Okay, so usually it takes a month or 2 or even 3 months for the readers to write a detailed review of the manuscript. No? So kahit nakapasa na kayo sa panel ninyo, guys, dadaan pa yan sa refereeing process. Nakapasa na yung MA thesis ko sa Ateneo noong 2020, but when I submitted a chapter of that thesis to a journal, it took me a year before I could see that in print No, kaya nga sabi ni Eliza kanina, 2021 na na-publish yung isang article ko. So, ganun siya katagal dahil ganun din kabusisi yung proseso. Now, pag binalik na ni reader yung kanyang review about the manuscript, babalik ito sa author. Siyempre, the author makes the content edits, babaguhin niya according to the recommendations or suggestions of the peer reviewers. Now, may mga instances din na may tinatawag na desk rejection. Yung pagkapasok pa lang ng manuscript, rejected na. Okay? Meron ding decision na accepted but with revisions. Meron ding decision na not accepted but pwede siyang ayusin for maybe for another time or another journal. Okay? So may mga iba-ibang decisions na pwedeng ilabas yung mga journal. But in our case, in Saysay Journal Bicol History, there is accept, there's accept with revisions, and of course, there is reject. No? Hindi tatanggapin for publication. Yung tatlong iyon, basically. Now, sabihin natin na accept. Meron pa tinatawag na copy editing stage. At yung makakausap mo dito ay yung manuscript editor ng journal. Now, ang gagawin talaga ng manuscript editor is to style edit. No? Aayusin yung grammar, aayusin yung spelling, yung usage of words, aayusin yung, ano pa bang nandun, yung citation style. Kasi yung mga journals, meron silang sinusundan na citation style. Halimbawa, sa Saysay Journal, sa amin, ang ginagamit namin ay yung in-text citation, yung mga parentheses. Yung mga nasa psychology, familiar kayo dito, no? Yung in-text citation. Pero yung mga nasa philosophy, ang hilig nila yung footnotes. Diba? Ilalagay sa footnotes lahat ng citation. So, the role of the copy editing stage is to render the manuscript compliant to the journal house style. Ano ba yung style ng journal? Kailangan sumunod yung manuscript mo. Hindi pwedeng kung ano yung trip mo, yun na yun. No? Hindi pwede. Dapat consistent yan all the way. Style edits. And then number 3, ila-layout na yan. Ilalatag na yan sa book form. Titingnan yung disenyo. Tapos, syempre, meron siyang tinatawag na, I forgot what it's called, pero dun sa taas, no, may running text yan for every page. Tapos, yung nuances niyan, syempre, yung designer na yung bahala. I think even the font style, kailangan pag-isipan mo kung ano yung font style. Di pwedeng masakit sa mata. Hindi pwedeng serif na font style. Dapat sans serif. No? Pag tinignan niyo yung journal namin, I think sans serif yung ginamit ni Vic doon na body text para hindi siya masakit sa mata. Kung serif man, siguro kailangan maging wise ka sa pagpili ng serif na font style. No? Hindi siya dapat straining to the eyes. Kailangan kahit serif font style siya, madali pa rin siyang basahin. Let me review our journal. I think serif yung ginamit, pero it's easy on the eyes. No? Hindi siya yung masakit sa mata na serif. Okay, and then it has to go through rounds of proofreading. I-check kung tama na ba yung mga spelling, yung spacing, all those nuances. No? Kung wala na bang na-miss out na bibliographic entry, ito yung last thing na gagawin ng editor bago ito sumalang eventually sa printing. Now, in the case of Saysay, the Journal Bicol History, yung partner namin na publisher ay yung Goldprint Publishing House. Kung familiar kayo dito sa Concepcion Grande, nandyan yung aming printer. At dyan namin sinasalang yung aming journal. And then of course, it takes around 3 to 4 weeks or even 5 weeks kapag peak season. And then patingi-tingi pa yan i-release sa inyo. Usually, 500 copies yung pinapagawa. And to give you an idea, how much publications, cost. In the case of Saysay, for a 500 copy print run, we had to spend 55,000 pesos. 110 pesos per journal yung yung cost niya. But of course, we got it at a discount pa. What more kung hindi? So mas mahal yung printing costs ng journal, lalo na kung makapal, lalo na kung maganda yung papel, kung maganda yung cover. So marami pang nuances yan in terms of printing. Diba? In terms of choosing the materials for your journal, the physical aspect of the journal. Diba? So nakikita natin na hindi siya ganun kadali. Diba? It's not as easy as you can just put your claim out there and that's it. Put your historical paper out there and okay na yun. Diba? And then of course, publication and dissemination comes after that. Diba? Mapapublish siya, madidisseminate siya. And it is very challenging, especially at the time when it can spread like wildfire. Pag may kumalat dyan na PDF online, wala nang bibili ng journal mo, di ba? Lahat ng ininvest mo, wala na rin. Sayang. Masasayang lang siya dahil pwede na itong i-download online eh. No? So, nagsasuffer din yung independent publishers dito kapag may nakalabas na online na unauthorized especially. Pero meron din mga cases na may tinatawag na open access. Pag sinabing open access, it is readily available online. You can download it. Pero yung author noon, nung open access article na yon, ay kailangan magbayad sa journal. No? Kailangan magbayad ng tinatawag na article processing fee. I'll give you an example. I don't have a copy of the journal with me, but yung main article namin was the Bikol Archaeological Project by Dr. Stephen Acabado and company from UCLA. They wanted the article to be free and open access so that people can, access it online and download it for their own use. So sabi ko sa kanya, that will be detrimental to the journal because it will, of course, affect our sales. Baka konti na yung bumili. So ang ginawa ng UCLA was that they paid the publisher, they paid us in order to disseminate their article. So article processing fee, no, yung tawag doon sa bayad na iyon. So may mga ganung cases din, but be very very careful kasi meron mga tinatawag na predatory journals na pagbabayarin kayo ng pagkalaki-laki tapos ipapublish yung inyong article tapos hindi naman pala legitimate na journal yun. May mga ganon ha. Ako sa UP email ko may mga nare-receive akong ganong emails and I hope I'm smart enough to not entertain them. No? So be very, very careful kapag kayo nandun na sa stage ng publication. Choose the right journal where you'd like to publish your work. No? Hindi siya pwedeng kung saan-saan lang, maipublish lang. Mas maganda kung sa isang reputable na journal. So yan. So in terms of dissemination, we launched the journal last December 28, 2021. And one of our very first readers, of course, is Archbishop Rolly Terona. He was there. He happened to be there at St. Jude Thaddeus Parish when we launched the journal. It's also very opportune that several members of Sisai Bicol were there. Maybe you can see some familiar faces. Baka mga teacher nyo pa sila, no? Especially Valen and Pau. I think they're still... I think Pau is still connected with Ateneo, no? And Valen used to teach in Ateneo. Baka naging teacher nyo sila. So they're members of Sisai Bicol. So we published the journal and then we launched it last year here in Concepcion Grande in Naga City. So the peculiar thing about journals is that it's not a one-off thing, diba? Hindi kagaya ng mga libro na pag nailabas na, okay na yun, diba? Yung journal, kailangan mong bumuo ng readership para hindi lang yung maiden issue mo yung bibenta, kundi yung mga susunod mong issues babasahin pa rin ng mga tao. Yung peculiar about Sisai Bicol is that we are not based in a university. Wala kaming institutional base. Although nakakonect kami sa Holy Rosary Minor Seminary dahil rector ang aming presidente doon, nakakonect kami sa Museo ni Jesse Robredo dahil partner talaga namin ang NHCP with our activities or the National Historical Commission of the Philippines. Yung ginawa namin to disseminate is to leave copies at cafes. No, gusto naming ibalik yung sense na yung cafe is also a place for intellectual discussion and not just, guess what, chismis, right? Gusto namin ibalik yung ganung ambience, ganung idea ng cafe na lugar din siya kung saan nagpapalitan ng ideya yung mga tao. Kung saan nag-uusap sila ng mga diskurso hinggil sa kasaysayan, hinggil sa politika, sa arts, no, at sa iba pang aspekto ng ating pamumuhay. So, ito rin yung idea kung bakit siguro nakita nyo na sa Beanbag Coffee, sa Beans and Cream Cafe, saan pa bang cafe kami nag-iwan nito? Kahit nga sa isang restaurant, sa Cellar restaurant, nag-iwan din kami ng copy. So you will see it all over Naga City because we wanted to be more of a community journal rather than just a journal that is limited to or confined in the academe. So sa Legazpi, nakarating na rin kami sa Albay, dun sa 528 Ilawod Cafe sa SM. It's really such a challenge, to disseminate your work because you will have to sell. Yun yung karanasan namin sa Sisai Bicol. You will really have to sell, your journal, and what makes it, important. So ito naman sa Diocese of Legazpi, sa Vita Catholica Bookstore, nag-iwan din kami ng copies doon. Very, very interesting. And also we have also arrived in Quezon City sa Ruel's Bookshop. Naka-disseminate na rin kami sa Metro Manila. And luckily, kahit nga sa labas ng Bicol region at ng Metro Manila, may mga bumibili ng journal na ito. So very, very interesting. Yun yung kailangan pagdaanan bago mailabas yung papel, yung historical claim, yung historical paper na sinusulat ninyo. Now, I'm happy to inform you that this is also now available at the Ateneo de Naga University Library. So if you want to check out copies of our journal, it's already there at the Bicolana section. Please just look for Miss Erica Corpus and she will assist you with copies in finding the copies of our journal there. So yan. Mahabang proseso, hindi ba? Bago tayo makapaglabas ng pag-aaral hinggil sa ating nakaraan. And it's not as easy as making that claim, and that claim is already the end of the process. Kailangan siyang dumaan sa peer review, kailangan dumaan sa revisions, kailangan dumaan sa copy editing, proofreading, at marami pang ibang proseso. So, ipinakita ko sa inyo ngayong hapon yung nuances ng knowledge production sa history. Na hindi lang siya basta-basta, You can't just make a claim out of the blue. You can't just make a claim without evidence or primary sources. And more importantly, that claim should be lodged into the ongoing conversation about the subject you are writing. And yun na nga yung kahalagahan ng literature review. Kailangan yung ipasok doon sa usapan na iyon yung sinusulat ninyo. Akala ko noon as a younger student, the way to excel in the discipline, the way to go about in the discipline is to discover a primary source that's never been seen by other historians and publish your findings about it. It's not like that. No, it's not like that. If your claim to fame rests on your discovery of sources, then you are not really doing the work of a historian. The work of a historian is to read those sources and see what meanings can you make out of them. What interpretations can you render out of these sources? So hindi pwedeng dahil lang may access ka sa ganitong archive, ikaw na yung magaling na historian. What makes a historian excellent or brilliant is not really his discovery of, or his or her discovery of a certain archival document, but it rests more on what he or she makes out of those sources. Ano yung mga meanings, interpretations na fino-forward niya out of those sources. Now, siguro this is the more formative and reflective part of our discussion this afternoon. Why is it important to study history or write about the past? Why is it important that we produce knowledge about the past? Bakit ba natin pinag-uusapan to in the first place? Now, I will be very broad and vague with my insights here. So you just take whatever you can take or you'd like to take from this reflection. Now, of course, history gives us a better understanding of who we are and why we are who we are in the present. Now, it will make sense to you kung bakit tayo ganito ngayon kasi nakikita natin kung paano tayo noon. It gives us a better understanding of who we are and why we are who we are in the present. That's number one. Number two, it reclaims significant stories that may soon be forgotten. Yung lagi kong naalala dito ay yung pelikulang Coco. If you've seen Coco, Disney Pixar's Coco, kapag nakalimutan mo na yung isang bagay sa nakaraan at wala nang nakakaalala doon, that person dies a second death. Diba? In the afterlife. And that's tragic. Now, yung papel na kailangan gampanan ng kasaysayan ay i-reclaim o bawiin itong mga kwentong ito sa paglimot. Kasi pwede siyang makalimutan na lang pag namatay na yung maaaring magkwento, hindi na nadinig yung kwento niya. Yung papel ng kasaysayan is to reclaim those significant stories, to preserve them for posterity, more importantly. And number 3, while the past is settled, history offers new insights and interpretations about past events. Kung ako yung teacher nyo sa Philippine history, every meeting, meron akong ipapakita sa inyong bagong interpretation. At yung isang interpretation, halimbawa, dahil magbo-Bonifacio Day na next week, di ba laging sinasabi na si Bonifacio daw ay nanggaling sa masa? Di ba? Pero may mga bagong pag-aaral, si Michael Cullinane, Jim Richardson at iba pa, na si Andres Bonifacio pala ay bahagi ng middle urban elite. No? Sila yung mga tipo na kapag nag-13th month na, pwede na silang magpasalon. Ganun. Pag nag-13th month na, makakabili ng iPhone. Okay? So, what I'm trying to say here is that is history for you. New insights and interpretations may come about when historians discover sources, or there is a new reading of sources that have already been accessed. Pwedeng ganun din, no? Si Bonifacio pala isn't really part of the masses as claimed by Agoncillo, other historians in the past. Middle urban elite pala siya nanggaling ng Maynila. Pero totoo na naghirap si Bonifacio, pero nung tumanda siya, is part of the middle urban elite. Okay? So, makikita natin dyan sa halimbawa na yan na may bagong insight at interpretasyon hinggil sa nakaraan. And finally, to me, this is the best part of doing history. There's an element of mystery and serendipity. No? Call me mushy, call me cheesy, pero pag nagre-research ka kasi may pakiramdam ng kilig yan no? Kapag may nadidiscover kang bago, kapag may nahanap kang source or data that will illuminate you about an obscure part of your past, nakakakilig yung pakiramdam yan sa isang mag-aaral ng kasaysayan. And the thing is, siguro isa rin to sa mga dahilan kung bakit ako lumipat sa kasaysayan. You might be asking, philosophy major ka, sir, pero bakit ka nag-history? Na-attract ako doon sa element ng mystery kasi hindi ko alam kung ano yung mahanap ko pa. I'll never know what I'll find when studying history. And to me, that is the thrill of being in this discipline. If you simply have the curiosity, nakakakilig yung pakiramdam ng pag-aaral ng isang disiplina that humbles you because you don't have evidence that makes you kilig or feel that kilig when you are in the archives. And to me, I relish that when doing historical research. So for this afternoon, what I've shared with you are the processes that are involved in the production of historical knowledge, the processes that are involved in publication, in independent publications especially, and finally, some reflections on why is it important for us to study history. Of course, marami pang sagot na pwede dito, but in the context of our discussion this afternoon, I will end there. But before I conclude my discussion, I'd like to invite everyone to some upcoming events that we have in Sisai Bicol. So first, we have a conference that is on December 10, 2022, Saturday. This is happening on-site and online at, of course, on Zoom, online, on-site at the Holy Rosary Minor Seminary in Naga City. So we will be having Dr. Ricardo T. Jose from the Department of History to talk to us about the Japanese occupation years in Bikol. Kakapasok lang yata ng kanyang appointment. He's now Professor Emeritus from the Department of History, UP Diliman. Then, of course, we have a QR code here. If you have your devices with you, please do like us on Facebook, Sisai Bicol, to know more about our project and to know more about our history as a people, Bicolano people, yung kasaysayan ng ating rehiyon. We post content weekly. Medyo natigil lang ngayong November pero may mga ilalabas pa kaming content sa mga susunod pang linggo. So please do like us on Facebook or follow us kasi nag-update na siya. We're also on Twitter, on YouTube and also on Instagram, pero pinaka-active talaga yung Facebook. Maraming salamat, Al, for sharing the link to our participants. And finally, if you're interested to get a copy of our journal, you may want to subscribe by scanning the QR code that you see on your screens. Okay, so nandun na rin yan sa page ng Sisai Bicol. I will end my discussion here and I'll be very happy to entertain some questions, especially when it comes to the publication process. I'm sure meron kayong mga tanong about that and I'd be very glad to respond to them. Diyos mabalos po, and as we always say in Sisai Bicol, para sa urog kararong pang pagsaysay.
Wow, thank you so much, Sir Rugeria, for that very eye-opening and informative discussion. It's heartwarming to see your passion to contribute in the field of Bicol history. For our audience, let us show our appreciation by typing heart emojis in the chat box. So I'm sure that we all appreciate everything that Sir said. And yan, bigyan natin ng heart emojis si Sir. As a student, I learned a lot from the discussion. History will never be chismis because it is not opinionated. It is an evidence-based discipline. So before information is disseminated, there are rigorous processes that are involved before details can be published. Narinig na natin kanina kay Sir na there are different steps. You prepare the manuscripts, you engage in peer reviews, the copy editing, the proofreading, and then after all of those things are done, doon lang tayo makaka-publish ng different historical papers. So this proves that it's not true that history is just chismis because of the fact that there are extensive efforts that happen before you could publish the information being disseminated. All right, so if you have questions or comments for our speaker, please save them for the open forum later. However, you may already accomplish the Google form that will be shared in the chat box. Again, thank you so much to our speaker. Now, before we transition to the open forum of the webinar, let us first take part in a very quick game segment that our staff prepared for us. We will be having a small icebreaker game to fully energize our participants. And what more can energize our Ateneans than a cash prize? Yes, ngiting-ngiti na naman ang audience natin kasi meron tayong cash prize from OSA if you win the icebreaker game. So if you are ready, please type the phrase for the ready na sa cash prize. So if you're ready, if ready na kayo, ready na, type nyo. For the ready na sa cash prize. Go, sige nga. Gusto ko makita kung ready. Meron pa ayun. Ay, wait. Start na ba? Ano pa lang naman yun? Para makita lang natin if ready na sila. So ayan, for the ready na sa cash prize ang ating audience. So for our game, sige, let's see the title of our game. Next slide. Yan, so first the mechanics. Anyone in this room can play the game except the ACP staff. So sayang wala kaming cash prize. The game will only consist of 2 rounds. Again, only 2 rounds. The first person who types the code given by the host, that's me, in the chat box will be the first one to answer and will be given 10 seconds. Each round consists of jumbled words and the player must guess what the word is. Lastly, the player who will answer the word presented correctly wins. So, yung totoong challenge talaga dito is paunahan mag-type ng code. So, whoever is the first one na maka-type ng code will be the person na may chance mag-proceed doon sa round natin. So, yan, para gets natin, kung talagang na-gets natin, let's proceed with a practice round. Practice round muna tayo. Wala pa tong cash prize, practice round. So for the code, boring mo kausap. Go! Okay, so meron nang nauna. I think si Pay ba yung nauna? Nakita ko, si Pay ata. Yan. Okay, si Pay. Okay, so next, so Pay, meron kang chance to answer the practice round. So yan. And I will only be giving you 10 seconds to debunk yung mystery word. So ayan yung jumbled word natin. 10 seconds starts now. Chat, type mo na lang. Kung sa tingin mo ano yan. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, time's up. May na ano ba si P? May na type ba? Okay, wala. So kapag okay, sige. Sige, may chance tuloy. Sige, may chance tuloy dahil love kita, eme. Sige, historical nga ba ang tamang sagot? Answer reveal tayo. Yan, tama. Historical nga yung tamang sagot. So, ganun lang yung game, guys. So, yung dito, yung challenge dito will be the time pressure plus yung pabilisan mag-type. So, yun. Okay, I guess we're all ready. Sige. Para sa cash prize, the actual round starts now. Ako'y maprito ka. That's the code. Ayun. Okay, sige. May nakita na ako. I think it was Sean. Si Sean ang nakita ko doon. Sean, so you are proceeding to the actual round. Pwede kang manalo ng cash prize. So, yeah, next slide, please. Ayan yung jumbled word. Medyo mahirap siya. Parang medyo mahirap. So, wait lang. Wait. Wait. Sige, I have to ask yung tech team na yung game masters natin, yung staff, if allowed ba yon. May ibang sumagot. Pero sumagot naman si Sean. If ever na hindi po kayo yung na-mention kong name, if hindi kayo na-mention kong name na nauna, hindi po kayo pwedeng sumagot. So, si Sean lang yung pwedeng sumagot. Si Sean lang yung pwedeng sumagot ng answer. And sumagot naman si Sean ng independent. So, is independent right? Right ba yung independent? Ayan, correct answer. So, may cash prize pa rin si Sean. So, again, before we proceed sa next round, if ever po hindi kayo yung name na na-mention ko na nauna, you cannot type in an answer. Pwede kayo mag-type kung ma-steal, kung hindi maka-answer yung napili. Okay, I hope that's clear. Next round tayo, last round na to. Congratulations kay Sean. And ang code is your road. Your road. Okay, so sino ba yung nauna? Ang nauna ay si Faye ulit, MVP of the round. Sige, si Faye, Zara Faye. Yes, okay. May chance ka manalo ng cash prize. So, next slide. Okay, ayan yung word. Okay, so ka-countdown na ako. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, I think hindi ba yun valid? I said po na na si Faye lang yung pwedeng sumagot nung answer. Hindi daw po yun valid, sabi ng aming game master. So, may chance ba mag-steal or do we proceed with another word? Okay, so yung since hindi nasagutan, yung second na nakatype ng code daw, so yung second na nakatype ng code is, eto si Zach. Zach Rainer Loretta. So you have a chance to steal. Yung second, Zach Rainer, please type in your answer. So magka-countdown ako ulit. Yung Zach Rainer, 10, 9, 8, 7. Okay, sige. Okay na daw, sabi ng ating, ayan na, okay na. So ayun, congratulations to Zach and congratulations din kay Sean. Naka-answer na sila. So you won a cash prize. Please message si Carmela Lanuza, our staff, because para ma-receive nyo yung cash prize ninyo. Congratulations everyone! Congratulations sa mga nanalo. Okay. Thank you so much. Congratulations. Oh, ayan. So I hope na-feel ko yung enthusiasm ng ating Ateneans sa event. They're very participative both in the webinar and in the game. So I think na they are already ready para sa ating open forum. So you can post your comments, your questions in the Google form link that will be sent by our staff. So please, if ever you have questions, if you have reactions, babasahin naman yan mamaya in the open forum. So ayan, it's already flashed in the screen. So you can access the Google form link and you can place there all your questions. Okay. So while waiting for our participants to share their insights and inquiries, let us welcome Mr. Al Florence Albo, a fourth-year secondary education student in Ateneo de Naga University, who is our first reactor in this webinar.
Hello, narinig po ba ako?
Yes po. Very
Hello.
clear.
So, unang-una before po yung aking mini reaction ay pasalamat muna po kay Sir for a very wonderful talk. Parang halo siya ng review ng magiging process kung paano makapasa sa thesis, lalo na marami ngayon ay graduating. Ay mga seniors, marami akong kita sa participants na mga seniors or graduating. So very insightful po yung discussion. Siguro yung reaction ko po will revolve around siguro on the idea na ayun nga nabanggit ni Alisa na isa akong secondary education major at yung parang focus po ko ay ang aking focus po ay sa araling panlipunan or sa social studies. So medyo malapit or talagang within the same circle because yan o expected po na magtuturo ako ng kasaysayan or ng history sa susunod na mga taon or when I go or enter the teaching profession. Siguro po a point of realization or reflection is unang-una sa lahat, mali yung sinabi ni Ella Cruz ng history isang chief miss. Kasi kung babalikan natin yung sinabi ni Chris, parang may pagkakahawig yung historiography or yung proseso ng history, scientific method. Kaya nga po minsan sinasabi siyang isang forma ng siyensya or isang forma ng agham ang history. But at the same time, siguro, in-explain rin po ni Sir na parang, kumbaga parang diagnosis yung pinagdadaanan ng mga historians kasi grabe yung proseso upang ma-publish sa journal. Pero siguro kailangan yun because kailangan rin ng quality control upang ma-ensure na tama yung masasabi sa history. Kumbaga, commensurate yung haba o yung proseso dun sa quality naman po ng content na makikita sa ating mga resources. And siguro, paglilink rin or bilang pag-connect sa basic education ay napakalaga po yun because meron tayong mga reports na mga learners module, mga books na merong ang daming inconsistencies or mga factual errors based on or sa kasaysayan. And very important po yun because this informations or journals like this will help teachers, especially public school teachers a lot in creating modules na factually correct and interpreted ng objective yung version ng history. But at the same time, pagpupugay rin po dun sa fact na yung Sisai Bicol is pioneering the innovation of Bicol history and feeling ko very important rin siya in understanding history as a whole. For example po, if kunyari sa grade 7, mag-discuss ka ng mga kabihasnan, diba? Yung mga kabihasnan, nagsimula siya sa mga ilog. So pwede yung mga teachers, pwede siyang ma-relate sa konsepto ng Naga River o konsepto ng Bikol River. Doon nakikita or parang if grade 7 kang student or high school kang student na nagtuturo ng history, doon mas naipapakita ng mga guro yung significance or yung importance ng history kasi merong perception na ay i-memorize lang to, yung who, what, when, or how, who, what, when, and where, yung 4 basic W's lang. So nakikita yung parang effect ng kasaysayan or yung pag-aaral ng kasaysayan doon sa mga mag-aaral leading towards the idea na yung aim lang naman diba ng pagtuturo ng kasaysayan is for students to learn civic competence na they are able to create important social decisions like voting, protesting, and magagawa lang nila yun if like they are able to understand the history and its impact into the present. So yan lamang po sa aking reaction. Maraming salamat.
Wow. Thank you so much, Mr. Al, for sharing your reflection and ideas about the topic. Let us also hear another set of thoughts from Mr. Jerwin Roy Villacruz, a fourth-year BSBA Legal Management student from the same institution.
Hello, good afternoon. I'd like to confirm if I'm audible.
Yes, you are. You're audible.
Okay. First of all, I'd like to thank Sir Jai for the very insightful talk. He really exemplified being an Athenian, someone who is a man for others, standing for the truth and historical fact. We're really grateful because Sir Jai followed the advice of Father Bano and the fifth pillar of Ateneo to go back to Bicol and serve Bicol. He went to ADMO and UP but never forgotten his roots. Bicol really needs more historians like you. I'm very amazed with how historical methodology being exercised. The process is very strenuous. It undergoes very rigorous process, undergoes peer review, revision, copy editing, etc. That we cannot just make a claim without basing it on a historical evidence. And therefore, we encourage more Athenians to read Saysay Bicol's published works, etc. I have three questions, and siguro Sir Jai would may answer them one by one. The first is, how will the youth be encouraged to be more participative in the historical knowledge production, given this status quo of the Marcos administration, where there is a prevalence of historical revisionism and propaganda?
Salamat, Jerwin, for the question. Gusto kong balikan yung sinabi ni Al, at yung binanggit ko rin kanina, to make history more personal to the students. Kasi halimbawa, pag tinuro mo yung mga civilization, sinasabi ni Al kanina, yung Mesopotamia, yung China, parang hindi naman yung papansinin ng mga grade 7 kung magtatapos doon yung discussion mo. You have to bring it closer to them. No? I think the more Ignatian, Jesuit way to put it is to find where the students are. Puntahan mo sila kung saan sila nakatambay. And it's also one reason why we are trying to engage audiences on social media. But of course, as we all know, it's limited by algorithm as well. In as much as you benefit from algorithm if you pay, di ba? Siyempre, mas maraming audiences makakatanggap. Pero limitado rin siya if you're not paying for dissemination of your content. Kasi nandun lang yan sa lalabas lang siya dun sa mga taong mahilig sa kasaysayan or may previous posts in history or may previous likes on history. But to me, Jerwin, the best way the very first thing that you do to engage the younger audiences is to go find them where they are. Saan sila nakatambay, punta mo sila, start engaging them with all these historical things. At maganda yung bilang isang teacher in training, maganda yung sinabi ni Al na kung tatalakayin mo yung mga kabihasnan sa kanluran o sa Asia o sa Mesopotamia, magsimula ka dito sa Bicol. Make it closer to the kids, no? To the youth. Na instead of talking about Tigris and Euphrates, diba? Parang anong pakialam ko dyan sa Tigris and Euphrates na yan? Talakayin yung Bicol River. Diba? Lalong-lalo na, may mga bagong pag-aaral ngayon na lumalabas, lalo na tong Bicol Archaeological Project ni Stephen Acabado, ni Namadi Yakal, at iba pa, no? Yung mga friends natin from Partido State University. Meron sila mga bagong pag-aaral na sinasabi na may mga sinaunang pamayanan na sa pampang ng Ilog Bicol, sa may bandang Kamaligan, sa bandang Kipayo, sa bandang Bombon, di ba? Parang nasa backyard lang natin to. So if you teach history that way, then it becomes closer to the youth. It becomes more personal to them. And they would be able to relate, no? Kailangan kasi ma-relate mo muna sa kanila yung content. Hindi pwedeng masyado kang sa content, tapos i-impose mo yung content din sa mga bata. Mabobore yan. Lalo na sa basic education. I may be teaching in the university now, but I started teaching grade 10 students. So how do you make grade 10 students appreciate history? Nilapit ko sa mga karanasan nila. And that's one Jesuit Ignatian approach that we can take, to find where the youth are or where the youth is. So yun yung para sa akin may isasuggest kong approach sa pagturo ng kasaysayan.
Thank you so much, Sir Jai. Very important talaga po yung relatability and puntahan kung saan yung mga estudyante, yung mga tao sa cafe man yan or social media. And we're very grateful na ginagawa yan ng Saysay Bicol sa kasalukuyan. Siguro po may second question is, what was the most shocking historical fact for you in the course and exercise of historical methodology, especially those that went through peer reviews or revisions, etc. Ano po yung pinaka may share mo po sa amin na historical Bicol fact na very shocking po?
I couldn't think of any right now, but at the top of my head, I have Jose Maria Panganiban. Alam naman natin na pinangalan kay Jose Maria Panganiban yung Panganiban Drive, di ba? That main thoroughfare in Naga City. You ask any secular priest in the Archdiocese of Cáceres, and they will tell you that Panganiban graduated summa cum laude, or at the top of his class at the seminary. While I was working for my MA thesis, I visited the UST archives, and I found out there that Panganiban did not finish his studies at the seminary. Hindi siya graduate. So parang nung kinikwento ko sa mga kaibigan kong pare, kay Father Francis, kay Father Bishop Rex Alarcon, parang nagugulat sila. Kasi they were raised into this idea that Panganiban was one of their outstanding alumnus, only to find out di pala siya graduate ng seminaryo. So it's very trivial, but it somehow what do you call this, dispels the myth that he is one of the outstanding alumnus. Yung isa pa, mahilig kasi yung maraming historiador, yung mga traditional historians especially, in antiquity. Gusto sabihin lahat ng mas gusto na the older the better, the structure is 400 years old, and mas ano siya, mas okay siya kung mas matanda, di ba? How do you remember the Banawe rice terraces? How old do you suppose the Banawe rice terraces is? I would consider it as 1. Ilang taon na ba ang Banawe rice terraces sa palagay ninyo? Can you type your answers in the chat box? This is the second answer to Jerwin's question. It's not Bicol related, but it will show a little myth. 200 years. Okay, 3,000, 2,000, di ba? Yung karaniwang belief natin ay thousands of years na itong Banawe rice terraces. But the Bicolano archaeologist, Stephen Acabado, disproved that by saying that it's only around 400, 450 years old, yung Banawe rice terraces. Dahil naging response lamang yung paggawa ng terraces sa tinatawag na reduksyon ng mga Espanyol. Pagdating ng mga Espanyol, may mga tao na umakyat sa kabundukan. Ito yung mga remontados. And there they established their settlements. And one of their sources of livelihood, if not subsistence, is the rice terraces. So hindi talaga siya 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 years old as many others have claimed in the past. So isang Bicolano yung nagsulat ng pag-aaral na ito, si Dr. Stephen Acabado, taga Tinambak, Camarines Sur. If you're interested to read more about his work, I think he wrote pieces in Rappler, search lang sa Google, and he also has a book with the Ateneo de Naga Press, yung Decolonizing Ifugao Histories. So ito yung dalawang examples at the top of my head na pwede kong i-share sa inyo na mga myth na na-dispel dahil sa mga recent findings. Historical man yan or archaeological man yan, minsan yung praxis ng history tsaka archaeology dapat mag-intersect talaga. Para ma-explore pa natin yung deep past, yung pre-colonial past ng Bicol o kaya naman ng Pilipinas.
Thank you so much, Sir Jai, and really very shocking and yung historical fact na yun. Kasi actually, member po ako ng Remontados Debate Society, and pinangalan pala dun yung institution namin. And
yes,
yan po.
To go back to the mountains. Yeah.
Yung last and final question ko po is, do you think the process of factual historical revisionism is important? Or do you even believe in a factual historical revisionism, given mayroong mga misconceptions daw po in the status quo about historical revisionism?
Right. The first thing I'd like to mention is this misconception about historical revisionism, because it's not supposed to be a bad thing in the discipline of history. When you say you are revising history, you are bringing to light new sources to provide new interpretation about a certain past event. An example of that is the Bonifacio example I gave you earlier. Jim Richardson, Michael Cullinane, they disproved Agoncillo's claim that The Katipunan was of the masses, Bonifacio was of the masses. So, historical revision yan, no? Dahil binabago nila yung interpretasyon when it comes to Bonifacio, the Katipunan, and the Revolution. It also applies to other topics in Philippine history. It's not supposed to be a bad thing. What is the bad thing is the what we call historical distortion or historical denialism. Historical distortion kasi binabago yung mga nangyari sa nakaraan, may mga pinapasok na kasinungalingan, ano, may propaganda o minsan historical distortion ang tawag diyan. Kapag may mga tinitwist na facts about the past, that is distortion. Kapag meron namang pagtanggi o kaya pagkaila, no, na nangyari yung isang bagay sa nakaraan, ang tawag diyan ay historical denialism. So ito talaga yung nilalabanan natin during the campaign trail. I think even today, lalo na ngayon na nasa poder na ang mga Marcos, expect na in the coming years yung mga textbook, no, ng elementary schools ay magkakaroon ng distortions. I wouldn't call them revisions because in the discipline, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It is supposed to improve, no, our understanding of a past event. It's supposed to make the discipline of history grow because it has disproven or dispelled a certain assumption or myth or a previous knowledge about a certain event in the past.
Thank you so much po, sir, and just mabalas po.
Thank you, Jerwin.
All right. Thank you so much to our reactors and to Sir Jai as well for answering the first lineup of questions. Let us give them some love by chatting heart emojis in the Zoom chat box. At this point, we shall now entertain questions from other participants. Again, you may submit your questions via Google Forms, and if there is anyone willing, please make your question or reaction clear, forthright, and concise. With that said, let me now read the questions sent by our participants earlier through the Google form. They're actually interesting questions, sir. So here is the first one. Sir, what is your opinion on the saying that history is written by the victors?
Sabi ko na nga ba't lalabas yung tanong na yan eh. History is written by the victors. Ano? Lagi kasi itong mini-mention ng mga propagandists ni Bongbong, diba? Leading to the elections. At kaya daw na-obscure yung mga Marcos at lumitaw yung mga quote-unquote dilaw, no, dahil sila yung nagwagi noong 1986 ng EDSA Revolution. Pero lagi kasi ring taken out of context itong quote na ito, yung history is written by the victors. For a full explanation, I would recommend that you take a look at a TikTok video by Mighty Magulang. No? Kilala niyo ba si Mighty Magulang? Ako pinapanood ko yung content niya dahil in 4-5 minutes na i-compress niya yung gusto niyang i-impart ng historical knowledge. Ano? It's not peer-reviewed, that's for sure, but it engages, the students, even teachers, na-engage yung mga tao sa social media. Siguro ang opinion ko doon sa history is written by the victors, it's not necessarily true because history is written by historians and students of history. To be philosopher about it, it's not really the victors who write about it. Pero pag may mga ganyang quotes, pag may mga ganitong wini-weaponize na mga quotes, no, ang pinaka magandang pang-combat dyan is to always go back to the original context or to the complete quote, no, kasi baka redacted yan, baka meron siyang konteksto. Si Mighty Magulang, she explained perfectly kung saan nanggaling yung history is written by the victors. So hindi ko na yon ipapaliwanag yung hapon, yung opinion ko na lang doon is that there is a grain of truth to it only insofar as the elite, the powerful, the privileged ones, they have the means to commission historians to write their narratives. The big people, sila yung may kakayanan, may pera na bayaran yung mga historiador. Pero kung strictly pag-uusapan natin yung academic publishing, yung peer review, hindi, it's the historians who write history, not the victors. Okay? So yun.
Okay, thank you so much, sir, for the reality check. Totoo nga naman talaga na history is written by the historians. For our next question, I think matutuwa ka dito, sir. Would it be possible that Sisai Bicol could have a counterpart organization in academic institutions, especially here at ADNU? So I think we have student leaders who want to collaborate with Sisai Bicol.
Wow, that's a very good question. It's not the first time that we actually received that query. I also have a student, I met a student from Bicol University, and he was also saying na sana meron ding youth sector yung Saysay Bicol. Kasi professional organization talaga kami nung nagsimula. But we will be very, very happy and open if we have chapters in campuses. Ano? Ang ganda nun, may student arm kami. I think kasi kayo yung mas nakakaalam nung wika ng mga ka-generation ninyo. Most of you are Gen Zs, I assume, I hope. Sana walang ano dito, millennial pa dito na college students, sana graduate na yung mga millennials. But kayo kasi yung nakakaalam kung paano magko-convey ng message sa mga kaedaran ninyo. So, kakalanganin talaga namin yun. Kaya if there are student leaders in the house, in the meeting na interested magtayo ng parang Sisai Bicol Ateneo chapter, student chapter, we will be very happy to entertain that, and maybe we can talk about it over coffee or over dinner if you like. No, as Father Francis will also be very happy with that idea. So, contact nyo lang ako. Nandito pa ako sa Naga ngayon. So, pwede pa tayong mag-usap about it if you're interested.
Alright, so kung sino man po yung nag-send ng inquiry na yon, feel free to contact Sir Jai kasi kitang-kita naman na tuwang-tuwa siya with the inquiry. Okay, so for our next question, sir, how big do you think is the gap between the academia and the masses, especially when it comes to history?
Oh, very big, very wide margin between the two, I'd like to think. Kaya rin natutuwa kami na kasama namin si Vic Nierva kasi parang siya yung ano namin nagche-check sa amin if what we're conveying is something that can be communicated well or properly to, the lay people. Let's call them lay people, yung mga nasa labas ng akademya. So siya yung naniniguro lagi, no, na yung content na nilalabas namin ay makakaabot at makaka-relate doon yung mga audiences namin. Hindi naman pwedeng maging esoteric kami, hindi pwedeng nasa ivory tower lang kami ng academia. Para sa akin, it remains the challenge. It's really a challenge. Una sa lahat, yung pag-disseminate lang, yung publicity lang ng Saysay Bicol. Ang hirap. Sabi ko nga doon sa kasama ko, nasa beanbag kami one time, sabi ko, magtanong ka ng 10 tao dyan na naglalakad sa gitna ng Robinsons kung sino may alam ng Saysay Bicol. I'd be surprised if you can find one. No? I really think pag may tinanong ka 10 tao dyan about Saysay Bicol, about Bicol history and our project, nobody would know about it. No? And I think yun din yung limitation kasi ng social media, yung sinasabi ko kanina, yung algorithms na it's confined to our circles. If I know yung mga followers namin ay yung mga colleagues lang din namin, no? My colleagues from UP, from LaSalle, from Ateneo de Naga even, kasi nagturo din ako dyan for a few semesters. Naka-confine pa rin dun pag nasa social media ka. So kailangan mo talagang lumabas physically, on-site. You have to be there. You have to go to places to communicate your message. And you have to make sure that the message you're communicating is something that they would understand, something that is useful for them, something that has impact in their lives. Sobrang ideal siguro ng mga bagay na binanggit ko, but that's the idea why we're doing history in the first place. Hindi pwedeng nasa circles lang natin at hindi pwedeng nasa university lang yung kasaysayan. It also has to go back to the public. Sinasabi nga ni Ambeth Ocampo, where history also belongs. Dahil yung publiko, kailangan kasama natin sila sa pagdadalumat ng ating nakaraan.
All right, sir. Thank you so much for the heartfelt answer. Ayan, so, okay pa. Next question. Why is it that in scholarly papers or thesis papers, the language is hard to understand and is it meant to be that way? What are your thoughts on this po? Kasi it even heightens the gap between the academia and the masses.
That's a very good insight. Totoo yun. Yun nga, sabi ko, esoteric kasi yung mga journals din, especially the international ones, we try to simplify our language. In history especially, kahit ngayong Philippine Studies, historical and ethnographic viewpoints, alam ko yung editorial team nila, they really ensure that the language that the authors use would something that would be easily understandable, no? Walang masyadong jargon. Ako guilty ako dyan nung philo major ako. Diyos ko, ang hilig-hilig ko sa jargon. Parang ayoko magpaintindi. Nagsusulat ako. But it's not the point of writing. When you write to communicate. You write to convey a message. So you have to make sure that you strike a balance between a nuanced kind of writing, no? Nuanced and sabihin natin informed writing, and at the same time yung language din, no? Na hindi tayo maging preoccupied with jargons, that we simplify our language then for the lay people to understand. Ang gandang insight nun na talagang it widens the gap kung mas esoteric pa yung mga journals. By design, sa Saysay, the Journal of Bicol History, we make sure that the language is easy to understand. Pero hindi rin natin may iwasan minsan na may mga difficulty sa pagbasa kasi yung mga nagsusulat ay yung mga tao galing sa academe. Ako honestly, I don't know how to write content, for example, for a museum. Ibang skill yun. Kasi pag sa museum ka, dapat engaging. Pag tiningnan mo yung panel, di ba? Babasahin mo yung buong panel. Pag ako nagsulat dyan, feeling ko hindi babasahin yung sinulat ko. Kasi yung skill ko ay nasa papel, nasa journal, nasa kahit nga online content or articles, op-ed nandun. Pero wala sa museum. Ibang skill yun altogether. So, is it designed that way? For some journals, siguro oo. Because it's a scholarly journal in the first place. In the case of Sisai Bicol, we want to strike a balance between scholarly and popular. A popular, sobrang hirap nun, guys, to be honest with you. Popular siya, but it's also scholarly. No? Na hindi nawawala yung footnotes, hindi nawawala yung citations, hindi nawawala yung proper attributions dun sa mga authors na sinasite. Pwede namang gawin yun. No? Tapos kung minsan yung language mo complicated, but it's also your way to educate your readers, no? Na may ginamit kang complicated words dyan, your readers get to learn a new word or new words, di ba? Ako, I like reading Nick Joaquin because he uses complicated words. Kaya, di ba, lumalawak yung vocabulary ko. So I guess it's part of it, no? Hindi talaga siya designed to be an easy read like, ano ba yung mga easy read? Like a tweet or like a like a Facebook post or something. So I think it comes because of the rigorous process that goes along with the publication of a manuscript. It is difficult because of that process precisely.
Thank you so much, sir, for the comprehensive answer to that question. As much as we would like to continue the open forum, unfortunately, we do not have much time now. So we will have our last two questions or comments. So ito po, sir, yung second to the last natin. Do you think that one can make a living out of writing, such as journals, books, or any other academic materials? Because some say that there are not much prospects here in the country compared abroad. And how can we inspire people to actually enter this kind of field?
Wow, grabe. Natawa ako dun sa tanong kasi yun yung practical side nito, ng mga bagay-bagay. And aminin natin na, halimbawa, Ateneo de Naga, many students would rather go to BS accountancy, nursing. No disrespect to these students, of course, because they think that there are a lot of prospects, there are a lot of career options if they choose these paths. Marami, no? Pag history or philosophy, di ba, ang gagawin mo dyan? Walang pera dyan. I heard that as well. I heard that before, even from fellow students, no? Na anong gagawin mo? Anong trabaho mo sa philosophy pagka-graduate mo? Anong trabaho mo sa history? Can you make a living out of writing or history? Yes, you can. You can. Minsan, diskarte lang din talaga at you really have to orchestrate your way into the discipline eh. Kailangan meron ka ring lakas ng loob to take that risk, and you really have to be firm on it na yun talaga yung gagawin mo, and above all you have to be committed to it. Hindi kasi sapat yung passion lang na passionate ka, grabe yung desire mo to write and to publish, to write a book, to write a journal article. Hindi sapat yung passion para doon. You need to have commitment, certain sense of commitment. Dahil yung passion, naramdaman ko na siyang nag-wane before. Naramdaman ko na yung pagod at burnout. Na parang, teka, ayoko muna mag-history for a month. I just want to go to the beach and not think about anything related to history. Dumating sa ganun, no? Pagkatapos ko ng MA thesis, ayoko na munang magsulat, magbasa, marinig si Panganiban. Sawang-sawa na ako sa kanya. May mga ganun. But the point is, you can make a living out of the discipline. And yun, may mga projects din yan. Importante rin yung public relations eh. Importante yung PR, yung connections na may establish mo, yung linkages, if you can find projects no, where you could pitch your, diba, your manuscript, for example. And then the government, in fairness, nagpo-provide din sila ng mga grants and funding. So you just really have to be diligent in writing a proposal, preparing your manuscripts. Merong ganun. Magpasa kayo halimbawa sa National Book Development Board. Tapos pag pinalad kayo, mabibigyan kayo ng certain amount para ma-defray yung costs ng publication ng libro mo. Or meron ding grant yung NHCP, National Historical Commission of the Philippines, saka yung National Commission for Culture and the Arts, yung NCCA. So may mga government subsidy din na ganun. Sa karanasan ko sa Sisai Bicol, mahalaga rin na meron kang magandang relationship with the private sector. With the private sector. Babanggitin ko na right here, right now, aminin ko sa inyo, we wouldn't have succeeded in our project if not for our partner establishments and businesses. Kailangan may ganun kang connections. Hindi pwedeng confined ka lang, teacher ka, academician ka, nandiyan ka lang sa sulok na yan. You have to be public. You have to be able to relate to different sectors of society if you want to be successful in this discipline. Hindi pwedeng confined ka lang kung nasan ka. No? Kami, successful yung Sisai Bicol so far with the help of our benefactors, with the help of our sponsors, lalong-lalo na yung Litton Hotel, Beanbag Coffee, mga partner namin yan. No? And kaya kami nagpapatuloy sa aming mga ginagawa dahil sa suporta rin ng private sector. So may mga ganun, no? I think next year meron akong commission project galing sa isang pamilya from San Jose, Camarines Sur. So may mga ganitong opportunities din. Pero ang sasabihin ko na lang sa inyo is that sana wag rin naman ma-compromise o wag din naman bumaba yung kalidad ng pagsusulat ninyo. Dahil lang commission project naman to, hindi naman to peer review. So I'm just gonna write it. No, yun lang yung nagiging downside kasi noon. Minsan pag commission, may tendency na hindi maging dekalidad yung output, especially in the context of Bicol history. May mga ganong instances. But to me, it's really important that you make connections. You establish linkages with both the government and the private sector as well.
All right. Thank you so much, sir. I think you have inspired a lot of writers here and perhaps aspiring historians. So for our last question, with the growing problem of historical distortion, how could historical academic publications help and cater the masses?
Wow. It won't. magiging straightforward ako sa sagot ko, ano? It won't per se. Limbawa, nag-publish ako ng article on Marcos and how the 1970s were not the golden years of the Philippine economy. It will not directly help the masses. Okay? It will not. No, the output itself. But that work that you produce can create a ripple effect for people to pass on the message. Hopefully, may ganon. Hopefully, may ripple effect na ganon. Siguro, nakita natin ito nung campaign trail leading to the elections, hindi na maganda yung fact-checking. No? Yung fina-fact check natin yung mga naniniwala sa propaganda, yung naniniwala sa red tagging, mga ganon. Hindi pwedeng i-kontrahin natin sila ng ganon kasi lalo silang hindi maniniwala sa sinasabi mo. Lalo silang hindi makikinig sa'yo. No? I think yung insight ko nitong nakaraang election, pinakamahalaga pa rin above all yung empathy. Empathy, 'di ba? Na hanapin muna natin, babalik tayo doon sa Ignatian Jesuit way of doing things. Hanapin muna natin kung nasaan sila. 'Di ba? And understand their context. Bakit si ganito? Bakit yung tito ko DDS na red tagger pa? No? Ganon, 'di ba? Bakit siya ganon? Tingnan natin, pwede natin siyang kausapin about it. Pero yung cancel culture kasi I think it worked to the detriment of Lenny's campaign during the past elections. Sa akin hindi nakatulong yun. Kasi para sa mga masa, parang mau-ostracize talaga sila noon eh. And I also didn't like those classist posts na parang si Bongbong Marcos daw yung suot niya eh, parang top ng mga waiter sa Chowking. I didn't like that. It's actually how Marcos succeeded in connecting with the masses. It's how he succeeded. No? It's to look like them, to dress like them, even to smell like them, if that's even possible in a campaign under the heat of the sun. Empathy. Empathy pa rin talaga yung sagot para makakonect. It's not really the academic publication. It's not really the journal article itself. But to me, it's important that we listen. We listen to their plight. We listen to their thoughts. Ang hindi ko maintindihan, yung masa maintindihan ko, pwede kong kausapin yan, tanungin saan siya nanggagaling. Ang hindi ko maintindihan, yung mga formally educated and yet naniniwala sa distortion. Yun yung mas mahirap, di ba? Yun yung mas mahirap. Paano ka magko-connect doon? Paano mo siya kakausapin? Paano mo siya i-engage? Ako personally, I don't because I don't have the energy for that. Di ba? I don't know, but to the question, how do you engage the masses? It's not the journals, it's not the outputs, it's not the books, no. And para sa akin, medyo elitist pa nga yung stance na we're gonna educate you on how to vote. Hindi ganun. Nakita natin hindi nag-work yung ganung approach. Hindi. We can't just cancel our way into a better government. No, we can't do that. So para sa akin, we exercise our empathy. We try to look for the reasons. We try to understand where they're coming from. Ito pa rin talaga yung solution. More than the academic articles we produce to disprove people. parang hindi nila ma-appreciate yun.
Ayun. Thank you so much, sir. I agree with everything that you said of how there were instances na dun nga sa campaign ni Lenny, perhaps one of the reasons as to why hindi favorable yung result was because there were elitist comments, may mga classist moments talaga. And I really do agree with that. Ayun. So that ends our open forum. That concludes our open forum. I would like to express my gratitude to our sharers, reactors, and of course to Sir Rugeria for giving us the wonderful answers, inspiring answers as to how we could connect more with history. So history grounds us to the past, the present, and even the future. But apart from learning the extensive processes that historical documents actually go through, it was also enlightening to learn the wonderful ripple effects that history makes in unifying the nation and the people. It enables us to understand their contexts, to grow closer with the grassroots and create connective relationships. I could say that everyone had an insightful experience in this webinar based on how participative the audience were in the open forum and the entirety of the program. Now, to show our gratitude for our resource speaker for his time work, we now present this electronic certificate of appreciation, and let me read the citation. The Office of Student Affairs, Ateneo de Naga University, presents this certificate of appreciation to Mr. Javier Leonardo Rugeria in grateful recognition of his expertise and service as resource speaker in the alternative class program entitled Historical Knowledge Production and Academic Publication, held on November 25, 2022. Given this 25th day of November 2022 at the Ateneo de Naga University, City of Naga, Philippines. Signed by Mr. Rodolfo S. B. Bertus Jr., Director of Student Affairs, Ms. Janet B. Badong Badilla, Executive Director for Mission and Identity, Dr. Alfredo C. Pabay, Vice President for Higher Education, and Father Roberto Ezequiel Rivera of the Society of Jesus University President. So thank you once again, Sir Jai. We are very delighted to have you as our speaker today. May I ask our speaker to have a quick photo opportunity with the certificate. So yan, our tech team. Smile po tayo, sir. Sige. Okay na. Ayun. So okay na daw po, sabi ng ating tech team. Thank you so much as well to our participants who did not leave us until the end. Please do not forget to fill out the evaluation form, which you can access through the Google form link that our staff will provide in the chat box or through scanning the QR code on the screen. Now, I would like to invite everyone, yung lahat ng ating audience dyan, to turn on their cameras so that we could have a memorable photo opportunity for this event. So yan, if your camera, please turn on and on natin. And let's have our biggest smiles. Picture tayo with Sir. Okay. So let's wait. Let's wait for yan. May mga nagbubukas na ng kanilang camera. Ayan. So let's just wait po for the signal of our tech team. Ayan. Smile na daw po tayo. Ayan, smile. Ayan. So, ito pa daw po, waki naman. Waki daw. Sige. Smiley. And, yun, waki. Ayun. Okay na daw po. And that's a wrap for this very insightful webinar. We hope that you enjoyed this event and gained new insights about the processes that happen in academic publications and editorials. Once again, this is Alisa Salvino. Thank you for coming and please take care of yourselves. Thank you once again to our speaker. Damang-dama po namin yung passion ninyo para makakontribute pa sa ating kasaysayan. We hope to have you again on the next ACP webinars or workshops that we have prepared for you. Stay safe always and God bless.